The alarm buzzed sharply, pulling me from the fog of sleep. I groaned and slapped the snooze button, curling back under the covers, dreading the day ahead. Mondays at Grant & Holloway Consulting had always been brutal, but today carried a weight far beyond my usual workload. I had a deadline looming, emails piling up, and the lingering memory of my boss's challenge from the previous Friday. I'm Alex, 24, office analyst, and, let's just say I'm not exactly what people expect at a corporate office. Outside of work, I had a secret life, one that filled a corner of me I rarely let anyone see. Cross-dressing wasn't just a hobby, it was an escape, a thrill, and a vulnerability all rolled into one. I knew I had to keep it hidden. Discovery could ruin me socially, professionally, even personally. And yet, somehow, my boss, Mr. Grant, had found a way to exploit that secret in the most humiliating, seductive, and twisted manner possible. It started as a casual Friday joke. "I bet you couldn't handle being a woman for a day," he said, half serious, half smirking as he leaned back in his leather chair. I laughed nervously, assuming it was the usual office banter. But that laughter had been my undoing. He didn't just make a bet, he turned it into a contract, official and binding in ways I didn't fully understand until I had signed it under pressure. I rubbed my eyes, the memory sharp in my mind. I'd thought I could outsmart him, that I could treat the bet as a minor inconvenience. But now, standing in my modest apartment, I realized how thoroughly I'd underestimated him. The consequences weren't just a little embarrassing, they were permanent for the foreseeable future. My apartment was small but cozy, the kind of place that encouraged solitude and privacy. The living room smelled faintly of lavender, the air tinged with the faint metallic scent of last night's stress. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stared out the window. The city below hummed with life, oblivious to my personal torment. Office workers bustled to their destinations, women in sharp blazers and heels, men carrying briefcases, all playing their roles flawlessly. And I would soon join them, in a way that would make me stand out for all the wrong, or perhaps right, reasons. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella, my girlfriend, appeared on the screen. "Good luck today, babe. Don't let him push you too far." Her concern wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Isabella knew parts of me most people didn't, including my occasional cross-dressing indulgences, but even she didn't fully understand the stakes now. She thought this was a joke, a minor bet that would blow over. She had no idea that my life was about to be rewritten, quite literally, under Mr. Grant's exacting rules. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. My reflection in the mirror across the room revealed tired eyes and a faint blush from stress, the telltale signs of someone carrying too much on their shoulders. "You can do this, Alex," I muttered to myself. "Just get through the day." But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. The first challenge was physical. The outfit Mr. Grant had specified was waiting for me at the office, something designed to transform me completely into the perfect assistant, the kind who could command attention while remaining delicate and deferential. My stomach twisted just thinking about it. The idea of wearing skirts, blouses, high heels, and the carefully chosen accessories made my heart race in both fear and a strange, undeniable excitement. I'd cross-dressed before, of course, in the privacy of my apartment, experimenting with styles and makeup, reveling in the thrill of secrecy. But this was public. This was my boss orchestrating every detail, every inch of the transformation. I dressed quickly, trying to prepare myself mentally. My reflection mocked me, the man I had always known, juxtaposed with the femininity I would have to embody in the office. I practiced walking in my new heels, adjusting the blouse, forcing my hair into place mentally even before the physical transformation began. This wasn't just a challenge, it was a test of control, of identity, of courage. And then, there was the relationship dynamic with Mr. Grant himself. Charming, manipulative, and sharp-eyed, he could read a person like an open book. His bets weren't casual, they were lessons in power, control, and subtle domination. I knew he would watch every gesture, every misstep, analyzing me, enjoying the discomfort, feeding off my tension. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I checked the clock. 15 minutes until I had to leave. My stomach tightened, a swirl of anxiety and adrenaline. Isabella's voice echoed in my mind, concerned, caring, but I couldn't afford weakness now. I grabbed my bag, double-checked my appearance, and took a deep breath. Today, I would walk into the office not as Alex the analyst, but as Alex, the pretty, compliant assistant my boss demanded. The elevator ride down to the lobby felt endless. Each floor that passed, my pulse quickened. The automatic doors to the office building opened, revealing the bustling office beyond, the hub of activity where my every move would be scrutinized. I stepped forward, heels clicking against the polished floors, a sound that seemed louder than life itself. And there he was, Mr. Grant, leaning against the reception desk, arms crossed, a knowing smirk curling his lips. "Welcome," he said, eyes glinting. "I hope you're ready to embrace your new role." I swallowed hard. Ready? I wasn't sure if anyone could be ready for this. But there was no turning back. With that, my journey into a world of transformation, humiliation, temptation, and suspense had begun. And I had no idea how, or if, I would survive it. The moment I stepped into the office, the atmosphere hit me like a wave. Fluorescent lights reflected off glass cubicles, and the hum of computers and quiet chatter created the backdrop for the corporate machine. But today, it wasn't business as usual. Today, I was under scrutiny, transformed not just physically but emotionally into someone entirely different. Mr. Grant guided me to a small, private room adjacent to his office, a space I had never entered before. Inside, neatly arranged on a velvet cloth, were the clothes and accessories that would redefine me for the day. A blush-colored blouse, a fitted pencil skirt, sheer stockings, and a pair of patent leather heels that seemed far too high for comfort. On a separate tray, cosmetics were laid out with surgical precision: foundation, blush, eyeshadow, mascara, and lipstick. I swallowed hard. Each item was a symbol of the persona I was about to embody, a persona dictated by my boss, controlled and curated to perfection. My heart raced as I hesitated at the edge of the room. This wasn't the Alex anyone knew. This was someone else. "You'll need to get into these immediately," Mr. Grant said, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed and a gleam in his eye that mixed amusement with challenge. "And don't worry, if you follow my instructions, you'll look perfect." Perfect. The word felt like a weight pressing down on me. I nodded, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. I began with the basics. The stockings went on first, smooth and delicate against my skin, making my legs feel exposed and oddly elegant at the same time. I hesitated as I slid into the pencil skirt, feeling the tight fabric constricting my movement, forcing me to walk differently, more carefully. Then came the blouse, soft against my shoulders, the buttons a delicate challenge as I fastened each one. My reflection in the mirror, a face framed by soft waves of hair, enhanced by makeup, lips tinted a subtle pink, was almost unrecognizable. I felt a mix of exhilaration and vulnerability. I had crossed into a territory that felt thrilling yet terrifying, my identity split between the person I knew myself to be and the one Mr. Grant demanded. Every glance at the mirror reminded me of the stakes. If I faltered in my demeanor or posture, I would be exposed, humiliated. The shoes were the final test. Slipping my feet into the high heels, I wobbled initially, each step a reminder of my new reality. But with practice, I began to move with an elegance I hadn't possessed before. Each stride was deliberate, calculated, and yet carried an odd rush of confidence. This was my new body, my new form, at least for the day, and I had to embody it perfectly. "Good," Mr. Grant said, watching me with sharp eyes. "Now, we work on presentation." He guided me to a small stool in front of a mirror and began instructing me on posture, gestures, and expressions. How to tilt my chin, how to hold my hands delicately, how to smile in a way that was charming yet unobtrusive. My body felt foreign, every movement conscious, every expression a performance. It wasn't just the physical transformation that weighed on me. Internally, I grappled with a storm of emotions: embarrassment, fear, anticipation, and a strange, undeniable excitement. This duality was intoxicating and terrifying. I had always enjoyed cross-dressing in private, but now, every movement, every glance in the mirror, every step toward the office floor was charged with tension. I couldn't let anyone see hesitation. Once Mr. Grant was satisfied with my appearance, he led me to the main office floor. The moment we stepped out, I became aware of every eye in the room. Colleagues whispered, some barely concealing smirks, others staring with wide-eyed curiosity. My heart pounded, a mix of shame and thrill flooding my body. The office, a space I had always navigated with ease, now felt like a stage. And I was its unwilling star. Isabella's words echoed in my mind, her concern, her support, but I knew she had no idea how deep this challenge would go. The bet wasn't just about appearance. It was about control, about power dynamics, about seeing how far I could bend under scrutiny and expectation. Every small misstep, every flicker of discomfort, could become ammunition for Mr. Grant. My first task was deceptively simple: greet the receptionist and collect a stack of files. But in heels, in a pencil skirt, under the scrutiny of everyone around me, even such a mundane task became a test of composure. I moved carefully, heels clicking against the polished floor, posture straight, hands neatly folded around the documents. Every step felt exaggerated, every movement watched. And then came the first challenge, a surprise meeting with Mr. Grant in the conference room. He had invited a few senior partners to evaluate the new assistant. My stomach twisted as I entered, the room filled with people whose expressions ranged from curiosity to subtle amusement. I forced a polite smile, handed out files, and answered questions with a carefully modulated voice. Every word, every gesture was scrutinized. Internal conflicts raged as I moved through the day. Part of me hated the situation, feeling exposed, vulnerable, and manipulated. Another part, an unexpected, hidden part, relished the thrill, the excitement of inhabiting this new persona, of embodying a form of femininity I had only ever explored in private. The paradox was dizzying, an emotional rollercoaster that left me breathless and on edge. Throughout the day, minor obstacles cropped up. A co-worker leaned in a little too closely to inspect a document, triggering a flash of panic as I struggled to maintain composure. A file slipped from my hands, and I bent to retrieve it, conscious of the way the skirt clung and the heels made balance precarious. Each challenge, small as it might have seemed, magnified the stakes, forcing me to navigate the office like a minefield of social and professional tension. By mid-afternoon, the transformation was nearly complete, not just physically, but emotionally. I was no longer just Alex. I was the assistant Mr. Grant demanded me to be, navigating the office with a calculated grace, masking fear and excitement under a practiced smile. And yet, the awareness of every eye, the potential for exposure, and the subtle, unspoken control he wielded over me kept my heart in a constant, anxious flutter. As the day wore on, I realized this wasn't merely about clothing or makeup. It was about surrender, control, and performance. Every interaction, every step, every glance was a negotiation of identity, of secrecy, of self. And as I returned to Mr. Grant's office for a brief break, he looked at me with an expression that mixed approval, amusement, and something darker, anticipation for what was yet to come. The build-up was far from over. The day would stretch on, filled with challenges, small humiliations, and moments of exhilaration, each demanding that I balance identity, secrecy, and poise. And I knew, deep down, that every step brought me closer to an inevitable climax, where the stakes would be higher, the tension unbearable, and the consequences inescapable. By late afternoon, the office was alive with a hum of activity, but I felt like I was walking on a tightrope over a pit of uncertainty. Every step I took in my heels was measured, every glance carefully calculated. My boss, Mr. Grant, had been observing me all day, occasionally giving subtle nods of approval or a raised eyebrow that could make my heart stop. Then came the twist, an unexpected visitor. "Alex," Mr. Grant said, his voice calm but laced with amusement, "we have a situation. A senior client just arrived early, and I want you to handle the greeting." My stomach dropped. My pulse quickened. A client. Someone outside the office, someone who didn't know the bet, the rules, or the precarious balance of my new persona. The thought of interacting with a stranger while maintaining this facade made my knees tremble beneath the pencil skirt. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to straighten my back and lift my chin. The heels, once a novelty, now felt like instruments of torture with each step toward the lobby. The moment I saw the client, an older man, sharp suit, and scrutinizing eyes, I realized this was more than a simple greeting. Every gesture, every word, every expression had to be perfect. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Grant & Company. I'm Alex, the assistant assigned to today's meeting," I said, voice steady but soft, measured. My heart pounded in my chest as he examined me, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Ah, I've heard so much about you," he said, leaning slightly closer. "You must be the new assistant. Very impressive." Impressive. The word hung in the air like a challenge. My mind raced, calculating every micro-expression, every subtle movement. Could I maintain composure if he leaned in further, asked questions, or, heaven forbid, noticed something off? As I guided him to the meeting room, disaster struck. A colleague, unaware of the precariousness of my situation, knocked over a stack of files. Papers flew across the floor, and instinctively, I bent down to retrieve them. My skirt rode up slightly, my balance wobbled in the heels, and I felt the gaze of the client sharpen. I froze for a fraction of a second, heart in my throat. Then I reminded myself, poise, control, confidence. Slowly, deliberately, I straightened up, offering a polite smile. The client nodded approvingly, seemingly oblivious to my near mishap. My pulse gradually settled, but the reminder lingered. The stakes were real, and one small error could shatter the illusion. Back at my desk, the tension didn't ease. Mr. Grant had orchestrated subtle challenges all day, requiring me to answer emails aloud, handle phone calls with difficult clients, and even navigate a minor office argument between two co-workers, all while maintaining perfect posture, elegance, and charm. Each task reinforced the duality I now inhabited. Alex, the person I knew, and Alex, the assistant everyone now perceived. But the real challenge came unexpectedly. Isabella called. "Hey, just checking in." Her voice rang softly over the phone. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't told her about the bet, the costume, the transformation, or the humiliating thrill of my day. How could I? Hey, Isabella, I said, voice carefully modulated to sound natural but feminine. Just busy with work. Busy, she teased, a hint of curiosity in her tone. You sound different. Everything okay? Panic surged through me. Could she tell? Could she hear the shift in my tone, the subtle lilt of femininity I had cultivated? My pulse raced, and I realized that maintaining this persona was no longer just about Mr. Grant. It was about keeping Isabella in the dark, preserving my secret, and managing the mounting pressure. I'm fine, I said quickly, forcing a laugh. Just a lot going on today. Her voice softened. Okay, just make sure you don't overwork yourself. Call me later. I hung up, hands trembling slightly. The dual weight of secrecy and performance pressed down on me. Every fiber of my being wanted to collapse, to shed the persona and retreat into the comfort of my true identity. But I couldn't. Not now. Not with Mr. Grant watching, with the office bustling, and with the client still observing me like a hawk. The next challenge was orchestrated with surgical precision. Mr. Grant called an impromptu meeting in the conference room, inviting both the client and a few senior partners. The entire office watched as I entered, heels clicking sharply, skirt tight, blouse immaculate, hair and makeup perfect. Every step felt amplified, every motion exaggerated in the intense spotlight of scrutiny. Once inside, I was tasked with presenting the client's materials, answering questions, and facilitating discussion. My palms were sweaty, my heart racing, and yet I moved with an elegance I hadn't known I possessed. The thrill of performance, the terror of exposure, the intoxicating sense of power in my own transformation, it all merged into a dizzying crescendo. But then, disaster loomed. A colleague, someone unfamiliar with the bet, made a pointed comment. Alex, you really do look different today. Almost unrecognizable. Laughter rippled quietly through the room. My stomach dropped. Did they suspect? Was my secret on the verge of collapse? I smiled, laughed lightly, and deflected the comment with a polite response, but inside, panic clawed at me. Every micro-expression, every glance, every word was a potential landmine. As the meeting continued, my mind raced with contingency plans. What if they discovered the truth? What if Isabella found out? What if Mr. Grant pushed me too far, demanding perfection that was beyond my limits? The emotional and physical tension was unbearable. Yet I had to continue, had to perform, had to survive this ordeal with grace. Finally, the meeting concluded. Applause, polite nods, and approving glances filled the room. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by exhaustion and the lingering fear of exposure. Mr. Grant's gaze met mine, a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation in his eyes. You did well, he said quietly as we exited the conference room. But this is only the beginning. Tomorrow, there will be new challenges. And you'll continue to be perfect. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. The exhilaration, fear, and thrill of the day had transformed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Physically, I had embodied elegance and poise. Emotionally, I had confronted vulnerability, secrecy, and desire. And yet, I knew that the climax wasn't over. The true test of my transformation, of my identity, and of my secret was still ahead. As I returned to my desk, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass panel. The person staring back at me was both familiar and alien, Alex, yet undeniably someone else. Someone shaped by Mr. Grant's demands, by the office's scrutiny, by the intoxicating thrill of performance. And deep down, I realized that nothing in my life would ever be the same. The day ended with tension unresolved, secrets intact but fragile, and the knowledge that tomorrow would bring challenges even greater, forcing me to balance identity, secrecy, and performance in ways I had never imagined.